The massive crystal dome of Station Nexus gleamed against the stars as ships from across the galaxy docked at its ports. Inside the main assembly hall, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered for their quarterly meeting. The air buzzed with different languages and the hum of translation devices working overtime. Ambassador Keth stretched his long reptilian neck and flicked his forked tongue, tasting the recycled air. His scaled hide reflected the blue lights of the chamber as he shuffled through his datapad. As the senior representative of the Voran Empire, he took pride in presenting the military assessments that kept the Galactic Council informed about potential threats. Across the circular chamber, Commander Voss stood motionless in his designated section. The cybernetic implants covering half his face glowed softly as he processed incoming data streams. His mechanical eye whirred as it focused on different speakers, recording everything for later analysis by the collective. The ethereal delegate floated near the center of the room, its crystalline body pulsing with gentle waves of light. Unlike the others, it communicated through color patterns that shifted across its translucent surface. Right now, those patterns showed calm attention mixed with mild boredom. In a smaller section marked for newer species, Ambassador Cole sat quietly. His weathered human face showed no expression as the various alien representatives discussed galactic security matters. His simple black uniform looked plain compared to the elaborate ceremonial gear worn by representatives from older civilizations. Keth called the meeting to order with a sharp hiss that echoed through the chamber. "We gather today to review the military capabilities of all member species. As always, we must assess potential threats and contributions to our collective defense." The first few presentations went as expected. The Hive Queen's representative clicked and buzzed through statistics about their warrior drones. The Machine-like collective shared data about their latest weapon upgrades. Each species tried to show how strong and capable they were. Then Keth reached the human entry in his files, his reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Now we come to Earth," he announced, his voice carrying clear amusement. "The newest members of our galactic community." Scattered laughter rippled through the chamber. The Hive drones produced a chittering sound that served as their version of chuckling. The ethereal's colors shifted to patterns that suggested gentle mockery. "The humans," Keth continued, "operate under the most restrictive military protocols we have ever documented." He gestured toward the holographic display that appeared above the chamber floor. "Their own regulations prevent them from using many effective combat techniques." Commander Voss stepped forward, his mechanical voice filling the room. "Our analysis shows that Earth's military actively limits its own effectiveness through bureaucratic oversight. They have rules about how they can fight, when they can fight, and who they can fight." The display showed Earth's military structure with highlighted sections marking various restrictions. Keth pointed at each one with obvious disbelief. "They prohibit weapons of mass destruction in space. They require extensive psychological evaluation of all soldiers. They have mandatory cooling-off periods between conflicts." More laughter filled the chamber. The Hive Queen's representative clicked rapidly in what sounded like mechanical giggling. "They evaluate their own warriors for mental fitness?" It buzzed through its translator. "How can damaged minds serve in combat?" "It gets worse," Voss continued. "They have something called war crimes tribunals where they actually punish their own soldiers for being too effective in battle. They have classified their most successful combat techniques as illegal." The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to bright patterns of amusement. Its translated voice sounded genuinely confused. "They limit their own military's ability to win battles? This seems counterproductive to survival." Keth nodded his massive head. "According to their own records, human soldiers can be court-martialed for actions that other species would consider standard combat behavior. They have rules about protecting enemy civilians, treating prisoners with care, and avoiding unnecessary destruction." The laughter grew louder. A delegate from the warrior species known as the Blade Masters spoke up. "How do they expect to win wars if they refuse to use effective tactics? Do they not understand that combat is about destroying the enemy?" "Perhaps," suggested the ethereal delegate, its colors now pulsing with condescending patterns. "Earth's inclusion in the Galactic Defense Network was premature. A species that cannot commit fully to warfare may not be suitable for protecting civilized space. Murmurs of agreement swept through the chamber. Several representatives nodded or made their species equivalent gestures of approval. The general consensus seemed to be that humans were too soft, too civilized, too restricted to be effective allies. Ambassador Cole had remained silent throughout the presentation, his expression unchanged. When Keth finally turned to him, the human simply stood up slowly. "Ambassador Cole," Keth said with mock politeness, "would you care to respond to our assessment?" Cole looked around the chamber at the various alien faces, some showing amusement, others displaying obvious superiority. He cleared his throat once before speaking. "Earth's military doctrine prioritizes strategic effectiveness over raw destruction. We have found that certain limitations can actually enhance combat capability, rather than reduce it." The laughter that followed was the loudest yet. The hive drones chittered so rapidly their translator couldn't keep up. Even the normally composed, ethereal delegate pulsed with colors that suggested it found the statement absurd. "Limitations enhance capability," Keth repeated, his reptilian voice dripping with disbelief. "Please explain how restricting your military makes it more effective." Cole remained calm despite the mockery surrounding him. "Our psychological evaluations ensure that every soldier can function under extreme stress. Our rules of engagement force precision over brute force. Our ethical guidelines prevent waste of resources on unnecessary targets." "Fascinating theory," Commander Voss interjected, his mechanical eye focusing on Cole with obvious skepticism. "However, theory often fails when confronted with practical reality. In actual combat, such restrictions would likely prove fatal." The Voran ambassador leaned forward, his scales clicking against his chair. "Perhaps humans are simply too evolved for the harsh realities of galactic warfare. Too civilized to understand that sometimes survival requires abandoning such niceties." Other representatives voiced similar opinions. The Blademaster delegate suggested that humans might serve better in support roles rather than combat positions. The Hive Queen's representative wondered if human restrictions were a form of species-wide mental illness. Through it all, Cole stood quietly, waiting for the laughter and comments to die down. When the chamber finally grew quiet again, he spoke, in the same measured tone. "I appreciate your concerns about Earth's military effectiveness. Perhaps it would be helpful if you could review some of our training exercises." This suggestion brought a fresh wave of amusement. Keth's tongue flicked out repeatedly, a sign of great entertainment among his species. "You wish to show us training footage to demonstrate these theoretical advantages of your restrictions?" "If you're willing to watch," Cole replied simply. "I have recent recordings from standard infantry exercises that might address your questions about our capabilities." The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to patterns of indulgent patience. "Very well. We can spare time to observe human military training. It may provide insight into how your species adapts to its self-imposed limitations." Commander Voss nodded, his half-mechanical head. "Military training footage could be instructive. We are curious to see how restricted forces attempt to overcome their disadvantages." Keth gestured toward the holographic display system. "Please, Ambassador Cole, share your training footage. We are all eager to learn how humans compensate for their tactical restraints." Cole reached into his uniform and produced a small data device. As he walked toward the central display console, the various alien representatives settled back in their seats, clearly expecting to see confirmation of their assumptions about human weakness. "This first recording," Cole said as he inserted the device, "is from a standard infantry training exercise conducted at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. The soldiers you'll see represent typical human military capability." The lights in the chamber dimmed as the holographic display activated. The alien representatives prepared to watch what they assumed would be a demonstration of how civilized restrictions created military ineffectiveness. None of them were prepared for what they were about to see. The holographic display flickered to life in the center of the chamber, casting blue light across the assembled alien faces. Ambassador Cole stepped back as the image stabilized, showing a sprawling military base under Earth's yellow sun. The Recording began with a view of human soldiers gathering their equipment in what appeared to be a preparation area. Keth leaned forward in his chair, his reptilian eyes studying the humans on screen. They looked unremarkable by galactic standards. No thick armor plating like his own species. No chitinous shells like the Hive warriors. No cybernetic enhancements like the Collective. Just soft pink skin covered by simple camouflaged clothing. "These are your warriors?" the Blademaster delegate asked with obvious disappointment. "They appear vulnerable. Exposed flesh, limited natural weapons, no apparent defensive adaptations." Commander Voss processed the visual data through his enhanced systems. Physical specifications are below average for known combat species. Muscular development appears adequate but not exceptional. No visible technological augmentation. The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to patterns of polite interest mixed with subtle condescension. "They seem pleasant enough for support personnel. Are these the soldiers who will demonstrate your restricted combat techniques?" Cole nodded without changing expression. "Standard infantry from the 82nd Airborne Division. They're conducting a routine urban warfare training exercise." On screen, the soldiers moved through final equipment checks. Their weapons looked primitive, compared to the energy-based systems used by most galactic species. Simple metal projectile launchers, chemical explosives, and basic communication devices. Nothing that would impress a technologically advanced civilization. The exercise area came into view as the soldiers moved out. It was a mock city built for training, complete with multi-story buildings, narrow streets, and simulated civilian areas. The aliens watched with mild curiosity as the humans split into smaller groups and began moving through the urban environment. "Standard urban clearing procedures," Commander Voss observed, "though they appear to be moving more slowly than optimal. Efficiency would suggest." What the aliens didn't immediately notice was how the humans moved. Each step was deliberate, each gesture purposeful. They communicated through hand signals and subtle body language that required no sound. Their spacing was perfect. Each soldier, positioned to cover his teammates while maintaining fields of fire. The first building entry looked routine enough. The soldiers approached a doorway, checked corners, and moved inside. But something was different about their method. Instead of charging through or blasting their way in, they flowed like water around obstacles, each movement coordinated with military precision. "Interesting," the Hive Queen's representative buzzed. "They appear to be clearing the structure methodically rather than overwhelming it with superior force." Inside the building, the soldiers encountered their first simulated enemies. Training rounds began flying as the exercise became active combat. What happened next made several alien delegates sit up straighter in their chairs. The humans didn't just fight. They adapted. When the first soldier's weapon jammed, he transitioned to his sidearm without missing a beat. When that ran dry, he picked up a fallen training weapon from a simulated enemy. When all his weapons were exhausted, he improvised with materials from the environment. "Did he just use that furniture as a weapon?" Keth asked, his tongue flicking out in confusion. On screen, a human soldier had indeed turned a simple chair into an effective combat tool, using it to disable multiple training opponents while his teammates provided cover. But he didn't stop there. Everything in the environment became a potential weapon or tool. Light fixtures were used to blind enemies. Doors became shields. Even broken glass was weaponized. Commander Voss paused his analysis systems, running the data again. "This is unexpected. Their equipment limitations appear to be driving tactical innovation rather than reducing effectiveness." The exercise continued, and the alien observers began to notice more disturbing details. The humans fought as if their lives depended on it, even though this was clearly just training. Every movement showed life or death intensity. Every decision was made with complete commitment. "Why do they train with such intensity?" The ethereal delegate asked, its colors shifting to confused patterns. "Surely practice exercises don't require this level of commitment." Cole's voice carried across the chamber. "Every human soldier trains as if failure means death. Because when real combat comes, it does. We've learned that you can't turn intensity on and off like a switch. You either train seriously or you die seriously." The footage showed the soldiers encountering a complex scenario, where their primary route was blocked by heavy simulated fire. Instead of retreating or calling for support, they began to problem-solve in real time. One soldier created a distraction while another found an alternate route. A third provided covering fire, while a fourth flanked the enemy position. But at A was their use of restrictions that truly puzzled the watching aliens. When the soldiers had clear shots at simulated enemies, they held their fire if civilian targets were nearby. When they could have used explosive charges to clear rooms quickly, they chose slower but more precise methods to avoid collateral damage. They're deliberately choosing less efficient options, the Blademaster delegate observed with growing confusion. Their own rules are making the exercise harder. Exactly, Cole replied. Every restriction forces our soldiers to think creatively, to be more precise, to develop multiple solutions for every problem. When you can't rely on overwhelming force, you learn to be smarter. The training scenario escalated as more enemy forces appeared. The human squad was now outnumbered 3-1, with limited ammunition and no reinforcements coming. By all reasonable military logic, they should have been overwhelmed. Instead, they began to hunt. The change was subtle but unmistakable. The humans stopped reacting to enemy moves and started controlling the engagement. They used the urban environment like a weapon, channeling enemies into kill zones, using buildings and obstacles to break up superior numbers into manageable groups. One soldier climbed to a rooftop and began calling out enemy positions to his teammates below. Another found a way to cut power to sections of the training area, using darkness as cover. A third began using the building's own systems against the simulated enemies, creating noise distractions and confusion. "They're not just fighting," Keth whispered, his scales clicking nervously. "They're turning the entire environment into a weapon." The most unsettling aspect wasn't their tactics, though. It was their faces. The camera caught close-ups of the soldiers as they worked, and what the aliens saw there was deeply disturbing. No rage, no bloodlust, no emotional combat high, just calm professional focus. They approached simulated combat the way other species might approach routine maintenance work. Commander Voss ran continuous analysis on the footage. Their heart rates remained steady throughout the engagement. Stress hormone levels appear normal. They're treating life-or-death combat as routine procedure. The exercise reached its climax as the human squad, still outnumbered and outgunned, systematically eliminated every simulated enemy in the training area. They completed their objective with 0 casualties and minimal collateral damage. When the exercise ended, they immediately began detailed analysis of their performance, discussing what they could have done better. The alien chamber had fallen completely silent. The hive drones had stopped their chittering. The ethereal delegates' colors had faded to confused gray patterns. Even the normally confident Blademaster representative seemed shaken. "That was considered routine training?" Keth finally asked, his voice much quieter than before. Cole nodded. "Standard urban warfare exercise. Nothing special. They run scenarios like this every few weeks to maintain proficiency. But the intensity, the adaptability, the complete environmental integration," Commander Voss protested. "These are advanced combat techniques that take most species decades to develop. For humans, it's basic training," Cole replied simply. "We start teaching these concepts to teenagers in military academies. By the time they're active soldiers, this level of performance is expected, not exceptional." The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to deep concern. "Your restrictions force this level of tactical development in routine training?" "Our restrictions ensure that every soldier can fight effectively under any conditions with any available resources," Cole explained. "When you can't rely on superior firepower or advanced technology, you learn to use superior tactics and superior training." Keth's reptilian features showed the first hints of unease. "What we just observed was your basic infantry capabilities?" "This was a training exercise for soldiers with about 2 years of service," Cole confirmed. "Experienced by human standards, but not elite units. Would you like to see footage from actual combat operations?" The question hung in the air like a threat. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing uncertainty. If this was human training, What would their actual combat look like? Commander Voss was the first to respond, his mechanical voice carrying a note of something that might have been apprehension. Yes, we would like to see how these training methods translate to real combat situations. Cole reached for another data chip, and the assembled aliens braced themselves for what they were about to witness. None of them were prepared for the revelation that human training was actually the gentler introduction to their species' military capabilities. Ambassador Cole inserted a new data chip into the holographic display system. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, still processing what they had witnessed in the training footage. The casual efficiency of human soldiers had shaken their assumptions about Earth's military capabilities. This next recording is classified material from 3 months ago, Cole announced. The Titan 7 mining colony incident. Pirates attempted to raid the facility. Local security requested assistance from our rapid response team. Keth straightened in his chair, his reptilian confidence returning slightly. Pirates are a known threat throughout the galaxy. Poorly organized criminals with basic weapons. Any civilized military can handle raiders without difficulty. The other delegates nodded in agreement. Pirates were nuisances, not real military threats. They used outdated equipment, had no formal training, and relied on surprise attacks against soft targets. This would surely show human limitations more clearly than training exercises. The holographic display showed the interior of a military transport ship. 6 human soldiers sat in basic armor, checking their weapons and equipment. Just 6 soldiers. The alien representatives noted this with interest. This must be the advance reconnaissance team, Commander Voss observed. The main assault force will follow once they assess the situation. Cole's expression didn't change. These 6 soldiers are the entire response force. Silence filled the chamber. The ethereal delegates' colors shifted to patterns of disbelief. 6 soldiers against an unknown number of pirates? This seems inadequate for a rescue operation. The pirates had been monitoring the facility for weeks, Cole continued. Our intelligence indicated 43 raiders with military-grade equipment. They had energy weapons, powered armor, and assault vehicles. The mining colony had over 200 civilian workers trapped inside. The Blade Master delegate leaned forward with renewed interest. 43 against 6? Finally, we will see the limitations of human military doctrine. No amount of training can overcome such numerical disadvantage. The footage continued as the transport ship approached Titan 7. The mining facility appeared on screen, a massive industrial complex built into an asteroid. Smoke rose from several damaged sections, and the hulks of destroyed security vehicles littered the landing areas. The 6 human soldiers disembarked from their transport with calm efficiency. Their equipment looked primitive compared to what the pirates were reportedly using. Basic projectile weapons, standard body armor, simple communication gear, no energy shields, no powered exoskeletons, no heavy weapons platforms. They appear to be walking into a massacre, the Hive Queen's representative buzzed nervously. Perhaps human tactical doctrine has significant flaws after all. The first contact came quickly. Pirates in powered armor emerged from defensive positions, energy weapons blazing. The humans scattered and took cover behind mining equipment. The firefight that followed would haunt the alien observers for cycles to come. The humans didn't fight, like any known species. They didn't charge forward in a glorious assault. They didn't call for reinforcements or heavy weapon support. They didn't even seem concerned about being outnumbered 7-1. Instead, they did something that chilled the watching aliens to their cores. They began to hunt. The change was immediate and terrifying. One moment the humans were taking defensive positions like normal soldiers. The next moment they had vanished into the industrial maze of the mining facility like ghosts. The pirates, confident in their superior numbers and equipment, suddenly found themselves being stalked. Where did they go? Keth whispered, his tongue flicking out rapidly in agitation. On screen, the pirates were discovering the same thing. Their energy weapons and advanced sensors couldn't locate targets that seemed to move through the facility like shadows. Then the killing began. The first pirate died when a human appeared from an impossible angle, struck with surgical precision, and vanished before his companions could react. The second died when the facility's own mining equipment was turned into a weapon, crushing him with machinery he thought was inactive. The third fell to a trap that used the asteroid's own gravity and atmosphere against him. "They're using the environment itself as a weapon," Commander Voss observed, his mechanical systems struggling to track the human movements. "Every system in the facility has become part of their tactical arsenal." The pirates began to panic as their numbers dwindled. They had superior firepower, better armor, and defensive positions, but none of it mattered. The humans moved through their defenses like water through cracks, appearing wherever they were least expected. What disturbed the alien observers most was how the humans coordinated without apparent communication. They worked together with perfect precision, yet rarely spoke or used radio signals. Each soldier seemed to know exactly where his teammates were and what they were doing at all times. "How are they coordinating these complex maneuvers without communication?" the ethereal delegate asked, its colors cycling through confused patterns. "They've trained together for years," Cole explained. "They know each other's methods so well that minimal communication is needed. Each soldier can predict what his teammates will do in any given situation." The hunt continued through the facility's maze of corridors and industrial spaces. Pirates fell one by one to tactics that seemed to violate every known principle of warfare. The humans used darkness, sound, even the facility's air circulation system as weapons. They turned the pirates' own equipment against them, hijacking their communications and spreading fear through their ranks. Most disturbing was the humans' faces when the camera caught glimpses of them. No bloodlust, no berserker rage, no emotional high of combat. They approached the systematic elimination of 43 armed enemies with the same calm professionalism they had shown in training. It wasn't that they enjoyed killing. They had simply turned it into an efficient procedure. "This is not combat," the Blade Master delegate said in a shaken voice. "This is extermination. They're not fighting warriors. They're processing targets." 20 minutes into the engagement, half the pirates were dead or incapacitated. The survivors tried to regroup in the facility's main processing center, using captured civilians as shields. It was a desperate tactic, but one that should have given them leverage against any civilized military force. The humans paused their assault when they confirmed civilian hostages were present. For a moment, the aliens thought they had finally found the limitation that would stop human military effectiveness. Then the 6 soldiers did something that redefined the Watchers' understanding of tactical precision. They rescued every single hostage while simultaneously eliminating the remaining pirates. Not sequentially, but simultaneously, using non-lethal weapons, environmental controls, and tactics so precisely calculated that they could disable armed enemies while leaving civilians unharmed, even when both were in the same room. "Impossible," Keth breathed. "No species can achieve that level of precision in active combat." The engagement ended with all 43 pirates neutralized, all civilians rescued, and the facility secured. The 6 human soldiers had accomplished what most galactic species would have required a full battalion to achieve, and they had done it while operating under restrictions that prohibited them from using their most effective tactics. "Status report," came a voice over the communication system. The lead human soldier responded with calm professionalism. "Facility secured. All hostiles neutralized. No civilian casualties. Minor damage to industrial equipment. Ready for cleanup crew." The recording ended, leaving the alien chamber in stunned silence. The casual tone of the after-action report was somehow more unsettling than the combat itself. The humans spoke as if they had just completed routine maintenance rather than a military miracle. Commander Voss ran calculations through his enhanced processors. The tactical efficiency displayed exceeds theoretical maximums for organic combat units. This should not be possible. The ethereal delegate's colors had faded to pale, worried hues. 6 soldiers eliminated 43 enemies while protecting over 200 civilians in an industrial environment filled with potential hazards. The precision required suggests capabilities beyond known organic limitations. Keth's scales were clicking against his chair in unconscious agitation. They made it look easy. 43 armed pirates with military equipment and 6 humans made it look like a training exercise. That's because it was similar to a training exercise, Cole said quietly. Human soldiers practice scenarios like this regularly. Hostage rescue, facility clearing, asymmetric warfare. The pirates used standard tactics. Our soldiers have trained against those methods hundreds of times. The Blade Master delegate's voice carried a tremor. What you call standard tactics represents the most advanced combat methods most species can deploy. You train against our best efforts as routine exercises? Cole nodded. Human military doctrine assumes enemies will use every advantage available to them. We prepare for the worst possible scenario so that normal combat becomes manageable. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. The humans didn't just restrict themselves for ethical reasons. They restricted themselves because their unrestricted capabilities would be something beyond the understanding of civilized warfare. Ambassador Cole, Commander Voss said carefully, what happens when Earth faces a threat that requires removing these restrictions? Cole's answer sent chills through every alien present. That hasn't happened yet. We sincerely hope it never will. The question that none of them wanted to ask hung in the air like a sword over their heads. If humans could do this while holding back, what would they be capable of if they ever decided to stop restraining themselves? The alien representatives sat in uncomfortable silence as the holographic display faded. The footage of 6 humans eliminating 43 armed pirates had shattered their understanding of what constituted normal military capability. Keth's scales clicked nervously against his chair, while the ethereal delegate's colors shifted between worried patterns. Commander Voss was the first to break the silence. His mechanical voice carried an edge that hadn't been there before. Ambassador Cole, what we have witnessed cannot represent typical human military performance. These must be your most elite soldiers, specially enhanced or modified for such operations. Cole shook his head slowly. Those were standard infantry from the 82nd Airborne Division. Well trained, but they represent normal human military capability. Not our best units, not our most experienced soldiers. The lie was subtle but necessary. The 82nd Airborne were among Earth's finest, but the aliens didn't need to know that yet. Let them think this was ordinary. Keth leaned forward, his reptilian eyes narrowing. Impossible. No species develops such capabilities without extensive evolutionary adaptation or technological enhancement. There must be some explanation for this level of tactical sophistication. Perhaps, the Blade Master delegate suggested with growing unease, we should examine human military history. Understanding how these capabilities developed might explain what we have observed. The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to patterns of deep concern. Yes, we must understand if this represents recent advancement or long-standing capability. If humans have always possessed such skills, it changes our assessment of Earth as a galactic neighbor. Cole considered their request carefully. The historical archives would reveal truths that might be more disturbing than current footage. But the aliens had asked to see it, and perhaps it was time they understood what they were dealing with. Very well, Cole agreed. I can provide access to historical combat records spanning several thousand years of human warfare. But I must warn you, what you'll see may be more troubling than modern footage. Commander Voss processed this statement through his analytical systems. How could historical records be more disturbing than current capabilities? Surely primitive warfare would be less sophisticated than modern combat. Cole inserted another data chip into the display system. You're assuming that human tactical ability has improved over time. That's not entirely accurate. We've developed better technology, but the fundamental approach to warfare hasn't changed much. The first recording showed ancient human warriors on horseback, attacking a fortified position. The aliens expected to see primitive tactics, straightforward charges, and basic combat methods. Instead, they witnessed something that made their previous assumptions crumble. The mounted warriors didn't charge directly at their enemies. They used deception, appearing to retreat until their opponents left defensive positions, then wheeling around to strike from unexpected angles. They used terrain features that other species might not even notice. They coordinated complex maneuvers, without apparent communication, just like modern soldiers. This is over 1,000 years old. Cole explained as they watched the ancient cavalry systematically dismantling a larger force through superior tactics. The weapons are primitive, but the methods are essentially unchanged. The footage shifted to medieval infantry combat. Again, the aliens expected simple brutality. Instead, they saw human soldiers using combined arms tactics, coordinated movements, and environmental warfare that put their opponents at constant disadvantage. They're using the same tactical principles we observed in modern footage. The Hive. Queen's representative buzzed nervously. Terrain manipulation, coordinated movement, psychological warfare. These concepts haven't changed. More historical records followed. Each one showed humans facing superior numbers, better equipment, or stronger opponents. Each one showed them finding ways to win through tactics that should have been beyond the capabilities of their technological level. A recording from what Cole identified as World War II showed human soldiers infiltrating enemy positions at night. They moved through hostile territory like ghosts, eliminating sentries and gathering intelligence before vanishing back into darkness. The precision and coordination rivaled what they had seen in modern footage. How is this possible? Keth whispered, his confidence completely shattered. These soldiers had no advanced technology, no enhanced communication systems, yet they display the same tactical sophistication as your modern forces. Human warfare has always been about overcoming disadvantages, Cole explained. We developed these methods because we had to. Our species has been fighting organized conflicts for over 10,000 years. Every generation has refined the techniques, but the core principles remain the same. The historical footage continued, showing conflicts from different eras and regions of Earth. In every case, humans demonstrated the same disturbing characteristics they had observed in modern recordings. They adapted to any environment, turned every available resource into a weapon, and approached combat with clinical efficiency. What truly unsettled the alien observers was the consistency across time periods. Medieval knights used the same environmental tactics as modern soldiers. Ancient infantry employed psychological warfare techniques that were identical to current methods. The weapons changed, but the fundamental approach to combat remained constant. Your species has been conducting warfare at this level for millennia? The ethereal delegate asked, its colors now a sickly pale hue. Longer, Cole confirmed. Archaeological evidence suggests organized human warfare dates back at least 15,000 years. The capacity for violence itself is much older. It's been part of our species since before we were fully human. Commander Voss ran continuous analysis on the historical data. The implications are troubling. If humans have maintained this level of tactical sophistication throughout their development, it suggests warfare is not just a learned skill, but an integral part of your species' nature. The footage shifted to more recent conflicts, showing human soldiers in environments that most alien species would consider impossible combat zones. Desert warfare where humans used sand and heat as weapons. Arctic combat where they turned cold and ice into tactical advantages. Jungle fighting where they became invisible predators in green hell. Every environment becomes a weapon in human hands, the Blade Master delegate observed with growing horror. Mountains, forests, cities, even empty plains. You adapt to any terrain and make it serve your purposes. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Cole explained. We tracked prey across vast distances, using endurance and tactical thinking to overcome animals that were faster, stronger, and better armed than we were. Those same skills translate directly to military operations. The historical records revealed another disturbing truth. Human conflicts weren't just about territory or resources. They were laboratories where new tactical methods were developed and tested. Each war taught lessons that were applied to the next conflict. Human military doctrine evolved through constant refinement across thousands of years of organized violence. You've been perfecting the art of warfare for longer than most species have possessed spaceflight, Keth realized, his voice barely above a whisper. While other civilizations developed technology and philosophy, humans developed better ways to kill. Not just to kill, Cole corrected, or to win. Human warfare isn't about destruction for its own sake. It's about achieving objectives through the most efficient means possible. Sometimes that requires violence, but the goal is always strategic success. The aliens watched footage of human soldiers from different eras demonstrating identical tactical principles. Ancient warriors using cover and concealment exactly like modern soldiers. Medieval troops coordinating flanking maneuvers that mirrored contemporary small unit tactics. Historical conflicts showing the same environmental integration they had witnessed in current operations. The restrictions we discussed earlier, Commander Voss said slowly, they exist because you've learned exactly how effective unrestricted warfare can be. Cole nodded grimly. Human military restrictions exist because we know what happens when they're removed. Our history is full of examples. When human societies decide that certain tactical methods are necessary, the results tend to be more destructive than other species can comprehend. The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to deep alarmed patterns. What happens when human civilization faces a threat that justifies removing all restrictions? That's what concerns us most, Cole admitted. Human military doctrine is designed around the assumption that some threats might require us to abandon our self-imposed limitations. We've built our entire defensive strategy around the hope that such a threat never emerges. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The aliens had been evaluating whether Earth deserved membership in galactic civilization. But the historical records revealed a more disturbing truth. Earth hadn't been seeking acceptance. Earth had been evaluating whether galactic civilization could safely coexist with humanity. The restrictions weren't signs of weakness. They were containment protocols designed to keep human military capability at levels that wouldn't destabilize galactic peace. The question wasn't whether humans could contribute to galactic defense. The question was whether anyone wanted to see what humans were capable of when they stopped holding back. Keth's final question came in a voice filled with dread. Ambassador Cole, in your species' long history of warfare, has there ever been a threat that required removing all restrictions? Cole's answer chilled every alien in the chamber. Not yet, but we've prepared for that possibility. Our military doctrine includes contingencies for what we call total warfare scenarios, situations where human survival requires abandoning every ethical constraint we've developed. The aliens realized they weren't looking at a species that had learned to be civilized. They were looking at a species that had chosen to be civilized, and that choice could be revoked if circumstances demanded it. The alien representatives sat in stunned silence, still processing the historical footage they had witnessed. The revelation that humans had been conducting sophisticated warfare for thousands of years had fundamentally changed their understanding of Earth's place in galactic civilization. The chamber's atmosphere had shifted from casual superiority to something approaching dread. Ambassador Cole reached for a final data chip, his movements deliberate and careful. There is one more recording I believe you should see. This footage comes from the Galactic Defense Network's own archives, recorded just 2 months ago. Keth's reptilian features showed confusion. Our own archives? What incident could involve human military action that we are unaware of? The Kepler 186 border incident, Cole replied simply. Unknown vessels appeared at the edge of civilized space and began attacking isolated stations. The defense network mobilized 3 battle groups to respond. Commander Voss accessed his memory banks immediately. I recall this incident. A probe fleet of unknown aggressive vessels, 30 ships of advanced design. The combined galactic fleet was dispatched to investigate and neutralize the threat. The ethereal delegate's colors shifted to patterns of recognition. Yes, the unknown attackers. They ignored all communication attempts and showed clear hostile intent. What does this have to do with human military capability? Cole inserted the final data chip into the holographic display. By the time our combined fleet reached the contact zone, the unknown attackers were already gone. Not destroyed in battle, simply gone. The only evidence of their presence was debris scattered across several star systems. The display activated, showing the aftermath of what appeared to be a significant space battle. Wreckage drifted in complex patterns around a small asteroid field. The debris showed signs of complete structural failure, as if 30 advanced warships had been systematically dismantled. The investigation found traces of exotic weapons fire and evidence of tactical maneuvering beyond anything in our databases, Commander Voss reported, his mechanical systems accessing the official records. But no indication of what force could have eliminated 30 advanced vessels so completely. There was one other ship in the area, Cole continued quietly. The human destroyer Perseverance was conducting a routine patrol when it encountered the unknown fleet. The chamber fell completely silent. The implications of Cole's statement hung in the air like a physical weight. 30 unknown vessels, eliminated, by a single human ship while 3 galactic battle groups were still in transit. Impossible, Keth breathed, his scales clicking frantically. One ship cannot eliminate 30 advanced vessels. The mathematics alone make such an outcome inconceivable. The holographic display shifted to show the Perseverance's combat recorder data. What the aliens saw violated every principle of space warfare they understood. The single human destroyer didn't flee from overwhelming odds. It didn't call for reinforcements. It didn't even seem concerned about facing a 30-to-1 numerical disadvantage. Instead, it attacked. But it didn't attack like any civilized species would. There was no glorious charge, no demonstration of superior firepower, no attempt to engage in traditional ship-to-ship combat. The Perseverance turned space itself into a hunting ground. The human ship used the asteroid field for cover, appearing and disappearing like a ghost among the rocks. It manipulated gravity wells to alter enemy trajectories, used solar radiation to mask its movements, and employed tactics that treated three-dimensional space as if it were a vast ocean where anything could become an ambush point. How are they, moving like that? The Blademaster delegate asked in astonishment. Their ship appears to be everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. The unknown vessels, clearly advanced and dangerous, found themselves being systematically hunted by an opponent that refused to fight by any recognizable rules. The Perseverance struck from impossible angles, using physics itself as a weapon. It redirected asteroids into enemy flight paths, used gravitational slingshots to achieve impossible velocities, and somehow managed to be exactly where it needed to be when it needed to be there. They're using stellar mechanics as tactical elements, Commander Voss observed, his processors struggling to understand the three-dimensional chess game playing out on screen. Every celestial body in the system has become part of their battle plan. The engagement showed something that terrified the watching aliens more than raw firepower ever could. The human ship demonstrated complete mastery of space warfare at a level that suggested they had been thinking about interstellar combat for far longer than anyone realized. One by one, the unknown vessels fell to tactics that seemed to ignore conventional physics. The Perseverance appeared to be in multiple locations simultaneously, striking with precision weapons fire before vanishing into the cosmic background. It used the enemy ship's own formation against them, turning their numerical advantage into a tactical liability. The unknown vessels are firing on each other. The Hive Queen's representative buzzed in confusion. How is this possible? Misdirection, Cole explained quietly. The Perseverance is using sensor spoofing and positioning to make the enemy ships target each other instead of the real threat. A classic human tactic adapted to space warfare. The most disturbing aspect wasn't the tactics themselves, but how effortlessly the human ship employed them. This wasn't desperate improvisation or lucky accident. This was practiced professional execution of strategies that had clearly been planned and rehearsed for exactly this type of scenario. When the engagement ended, 30 enemy vessels had been reduced to scattered debris, and the Perseverance hadn't suffered so much as a hull breach. The human ship's after-action report was filed as a routine patrol incident, with a notation that unknown vessels had been encountered and neutralized according to standard defensive protocols. Standard defensive protocols, Keth repeated in a voice barely above a whisper. They treated the elimination of 30 advanced warships as a routine patrol action. The recording continued with the Perseverance conducting rescue operations for survivors from the attacked space stations. The same ship that had just demonstrated the most advanced space combat tactics ever recorded was now carefully extracting injured civilians from damaged structures with surgical precision. One moment they're conducting warfare at levels we cannot Comprehend the next they're performing delicate rescue operations, the ethereal delegate observed, its colors shifting to deeply troubled patterns. The transition between combat and humanitarian action appears seamless. Cole nodded. Human military doctrine emphasizes that the purpose of warfare is to protect civilian populations and restore peace. Combat capability and humanitarian action are considered part of the same skill set. Commander Voss ran continuous analysis on the footage. The tactical sophistication displayed in this engagement exceeds our theoretical understanding of space warfare by several orders of magnitude. How long has Earth been preparing for interstellar combat? Since we achieved spaceflight, Cole answered honestly. Human military planners began developing space warfare doctrine the moment we realized we weren't alone in the universe. Every principle we've refined in terrestrial combat has been adapted for three-dimensional engagement in space. The implications were staggering. While the galactic species had developed space travel for exploration and commerce, humans had been preparing for space warfare. They had taken thousands of years of military experience and applied it to an entirely new domain of conflict. The unknown vessels, the Blade Master delegate asked quietly. What were they? Where did they come from? Cole's expression remained neutral. Unknown. They appeared without warning, ignored all attempts at communication, and demonstrated clear, hostile intent toward civilian targets. The Perseverance acted according to established protocols for defending galactic citizens against unprovoked aggression. The chamber fell silent as the full implications became clear. The aliens had been evaluating Earth's military contributions to galactic defense. But the reality was that Earth had already been defending galactic civilization without anyone realizing it. How many other incidents have there been? Commander Voss asked, though his tone suggested he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. This was the first time unknown vessels appeared in such numbers, Cole replied carefully. There have been other encounters with unidentified craft near the galactic border, but most were resolved without the need for force. Keth's scales were clicking so rapidly they created a continuous rattling sound. Resolved how? Usually, a simple demonstration of defensive capability is sufficient to discourage further aggressive action, Cole explained. Most potentially, hostile forces reconsider their intentions when they understand what they would be facing. The ethereal delegate's colors had faded to pale, frightened hues. How many human ships patrol the galactic borders? That information is classified, Cole said simply. But I can assure you that Earth takes its responsibilities to galactic security very seriously. The session was ending, but not as anyone had expected. The aliens had gathered to mock Earth's military restrictions and assess whether humans deserved a place in galactic civilization. Instead, they had discovered that humans had been quietly protecting that civilization while operating, under self-imposed limitations that made their achievements even more remarkable. As the representatives prepared to leave, each carried the same disturbing realization. They had not been evaluating whether Earth was worthy of galactic membership. Earth had been evaluating whether galactic civilization was worth protecting. The mockery was over. The real assessment was just beginning, and somewhere in the depths of space, human ships continued their patient watch at the borders of known space, standing guard against threats that other species couldn't even imagine. The restrictions remained in place, but now the aliens understood why. They weren't limitations on human capability. They were safeguards that kept human warfare at levels that wouldn't accidentally destabilize the very civilization they had sworn to protect. The final question hanging in the chamber air was one that none of them dared to ask aloud. What would happen if humanity ever decided that galactic civilization wasn't worth protecting anymore?